Has this ever happened to you? You open a new book and for some reason, its pages are filled with a language you don't recognize. You speak the words out loud and next thing you know, an old one is rising from the depths of the ocean. Yeah, oops. Because it's strangely easy to doom everyone you know. You can read a story that wasn't meant to be told, explore an area that shouldn't have been disturbed. You could pick up this brick and leave yourself with only 1 week to live. It's an unspoken rule that some stories are just off limits to humans. Some ancient truths about the universe that we're better off leaving alone. Because discovering these forbidden secrets often comes at a terrible price. I'd like to show you how easy it is for humans to accidentally doom themselves by using a real-life example. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster of 1986. A catastrophe so horrifying it was recreated in a miniseries. Doomed from the start by a flawed design, the Chernobyl reactor awaited its inevitable explosion, triggered by human error during a safety test that would forever change the course of history. But the true horror of the nuclear power plant wasn't confined to the explosion itself, but the lingering, insidious presence of radiation. A dark and twisted force that continues to corrode the land and claim lives long after the disaster. From the heart of the inferno rose a strange pillar of light that was visible for miles. A shapeless horror that infects and corrupts everything around it. Yet the most terrifying part was that everyone was completely unaware of the lethal air they were now breathing.
You mean dangerous? It's a fire. It's over there. We're over here.
Like moths drawn to a flame, residents walked towards the plant, oblivious to the invisible poison in the air, oblivious to the fact every step towards the fire was a step towards an invisible doom. There's a reason this landmark is called the Bridge of Death now, a railway bridge overlooking the plant where people gathered to watch the spectacle. Families brought their children, thinking they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime event, but the closer they stood, the brighter the glow, and the more intense the radiation. But they didn't know. How could they? The symptoms came later. Nausea, headaches, weakness. The invisible poison began to work its way through their bodies, attacking their cells and leaving them with a slow and agonizing death from radiation sickness. The Bridge of Death is the most ominous representation of the decay of an unseen threat. And while it's debatable how much of the story is an urban myth or actually true, I still think it's equally tragic and fascinating. It remains as a monument to a place where curiosity turned to tragedy, and where the innocent were unknowingly exposed to a deadly force they would never be able to comprehend. Chernobyl proves that the most terrifying monsters aren't always the ones we can see. Instead, it's the invisible threats we unleash without realizing their potential for destruction. But what if that force wasn't unleashed, but rather invited in? Imagine a book that isn't a source of knowledge, but more of a doorway, one that swings both ways. A dark and sinister tome filled with doomsday prophecies and dangerous spells. The kind of book that fuels a villain's grandest schemes, offering the power to tear open the fabric of reality and summon demonic legions. It strangely reminds me of, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but hear me out on this, the Dark Prognosticus from Super Paper Mario. The game's intro states that the book held frightful secrets not meant for people's eyes, because the pages are filled with the events of past and future, with the end of the world fittingly being written in the final chapter of the book. The thing is, the Prognosticus doesn't just foretell the end of all creation, it demands it, creating a sort of paradox where the main antagonist, Count Black, sets in motion the events that will lead to the fulfillment of the prophecy. From the game's outset, a giant void looms in the background, gradually consuming all worlds and dimensions. This void, prophesied in the Dark Prognosticus, will ultimately bring about the end of existence. It's the opposite of something that we see all too often in fiction when characters are painstakingly gathering clues or conducting research. Often referred to as the Great Big Book of Everything, it acts as an in-universe guidebook that provides knowledge on every creature, spell, or object encountered by the protagonist. It's a convenient plot device for instant access to information, even if it logically shouldn't exist. And look, I get it. These books bend the rules a little bit, but I guess it's just because TV shows are more interested in delivering thrilling action sequences. Until, of course, there's a missing page to highlight a threat's power level, where it's like the book itself is saying, oh, even I don't know about this thing. You're on your own. These books sit at opposite ends of the spectrum. The great big book of everything is the trusty sidekick of the protagonist, offering guidance and solutions.
It's a big book.
But the evil book, like the Dark Prognosticus, is the corrupting source of forbidden knowledge, a literary Pandora's box, and opening it is always a bad idea. Originating from Greek mythology, the concept of Pandora's box tells the story of a woman who unleashed all the evils of the world by opening a forbidden container. In much the same way, the ocean floor with its immense depths and unexplored territories can serve as a symbolic representation of Pandora's box. In countless films and novels, the ocean's depths become the source of monstrous creatures, ancient evils, or dormant technologies that, once disturbed, wreak havoc upon the surface world. This narrative echoes the anxiety surrounding sleeping leviathans, the fear that our pursuit of knowledge and exploration might unleash consequences we cannot control. In the Iron Rig expansion for the fishing horror game Dredge, the narrative delves into the ecological repercussions of disturbing the ocean floor. The depths around this distant archipelago have seen their fair share of cosmic horrors. But ever since the massive Iron Haven drilling rig pierced the ocean floor, something ancient has awakened. The massive drilling rig symbolizes humanity's relentless pursuit of resources, even at the cost of environmental destruction. The black liquid that seeps from the rig's drilling site acts as a corrupting force, mutating marine life and transforming the once familiar waters into a different kind of hostile abyss. And yes, black liquid is the name the rig workers give the substance leaking from the ocean floor. But I know, you know, America knows that's oil. So while fantastical in nature, the game constantly echoes real-world concerns about deep-sea mining and the potential for ecological disaster. The real monsters aren't dredged from the deep, but born from our own insatiable desires. Unleashing unimaginable creatures because an oil rig is drilling too deep is a terrifying thought, but one I've virtually experienced before. Just a month before the Iron Rig expansion's release, another game featuring a drilling platform and monstrous behemoths was released, except it was more Scottish.
See this old rig? It's a pile of shite. It's falling apart. And we've only just started drilling.
The drilling rig of Still Wakes the Deep is experiencing unusual problems, but the site manager disregards the warnings and forces the workers to keep disturbing the ocean floor.
I don't care if it feels off, just do it, and I'll come down there myself.
Going into this game for the first time, I was already familiar with the cosmic horror trope it was going for. So, as you have probably come to expect from this channel, I was looking forward to seeing the horrors that would inevitably arise from the depths the most. Making my way through the rig that slowly turned into a crumbling labyrinth of metal and fleshy-looking matter was a challenge. But I eventually reached its base, which was where the terrifying truth became clear. Something was off, and the drill had accidentally awakened something that should have remained asleep. This wasn't just some oversized crustacean or mutated fish, even if the humans that start to mutate definitely look like it at times. This was something ancient, something that defies biological understanding, a creature born from the abyss, awakened by the insatiable hunger of mankind. While oil rigs have always somehow struck me as inherently ominous, there is a growing certainty that everyone who is trapped on the Barra D rig will be digested by the being. Because while exploring the Iron Island, you find workers in various stages of absorption, their bodies slowly becoming part of the grotesque, fleshy growth created by the otherworldly biomass. The oil rig's demise is a direct result of the site manager's reckless pursuit of profit. He ignores clear warnings of danger, prioritizing production over the safety of his crew. This blind faith in just follow the instructions and the belief that those in charge know best ultimately leads to disaster for everyone on the isolated platform. In the end, it wouldn't be surprising if our unquenchable drive for progress and profit awakened something truly terrifying. Human hubris, it seems, knows no bounds, not even the boundaries of reality itself. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. H.P. Lovecraft knew that humans have always had a curious tendency to be drawn to the very things they're told to avoid. This insidious phenomenon, this forbidden fruit, whispers to us from the shadows of our minds, weaving its way into our tales and our culture. I know the Dark Prognosticus from Paper Mario is a solid example of an evil and forbidden book, but the quintessential archetype is undoubtedly the Necronomicon, a grimoire detailing the history of ancient beings and the rituals to summon them. The motivations for even considering flipping through its pages are as varied as those who seek it, whether driven by curiosity, ambition, or desperation. Those who dare to read its words risk unleashing an often uncooperative entity, because on a literal level, it's easy to say no to something that is called forbidden, but life rarely offers such clear-cut choices. Why is something deemed forbidden? What is the root of its forbidden nature? If we look at a universe where these questions have all but consumed the society, we can witness the horrifying spectacle of a world left to rot and suffer under the oppressive weight of occult practices. A religious organization in Bloodborne's Yharnam called the Healing Church discovered a special concoction of old blood that could be used in a healing process known as blood ministration, a process to cure diseases through blood transfusion and bloodletting. It's easy to mistake the name Healing Church as something benevolent, but beneath the name lies an obsession with transcending human limitations. So it's pretty unsurprising that this process obviously requires human subjects, often sickly travelers desperately looking for a cure for their diseases or ailments, who are then offered the miraculous blood with the side effects, the terrifying transformation into beasts, not disclosed. After all, the most successful recruitment campaigns often rely on a certain degree of obfuscation. The hospital in the movie The Void follows a similar pattern. A place that is meant to help the sick transforms into a nightmare realm to another dimension. The outsiders that are trapped within the hospital find themselves surrounded by a mysterious cult that seems to be obsessed with drawing triangles everywhere. Similar to Bloodborne, a society or institution intended for healing and protection slowly changes into a place of death. The origin of the power we see in these settings, however, is deliberately left ambiguous, as is often the case with cosmic horror. So while the quote, "It's amazing what you find if you really go looking," accurately captures the theme of forbidden knowledge, innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire of the power-hungry are often the ones who pay the price, with sanity and physical form usually being the first casualties. These tragic tales of power's corrupting influence, where those meant to protect instead inflict the greatest harm, are sadly reminiscent of Chernobyl. Because while the explosion was terrifying in its own right, it's the aftermath and how higher-ups reacted that truly shook the world. There's a human tendency to downplay threats, to trust in authority, to believe that it can't happen here. It allows a culture of complacency to take root, where red flags are ignored and risks are underestimated. There is a distinct sense of foreboding as a group of supervisors push a reactor beyond its limits, driven by demands for increased power output and a disregard for safety protocols. Their hunger of exceeding expectations set the stage for a catastrophe that would destroy lives and leave a scar on the land for generations. But when the inevitable disaster struck, those same officials chose to conceal the true extent of the horror unfolding before everyone's eyes.
Not great, not terrible.
The citizens of the nearby city of Pripyat, blissfully unaware of the invisible danger lurking in the air, were left to celebrate May Day parades while radioactive particles rained down upon them because officials refused to cancel the festivities. Through the voices of survivors in Svetlana Alexievich's Voices from Chernobyl, the consistent pattern of deception by government officials reverberates through their testimonies. They told us it was safe, one survivor recalls. The radiation levels were normal. But the truth was far more sinister. These reassurances were not born from ignorance, but from a calculated attempt to control the narrative and suppress panic. The cost of this deception includes the loss of biodiversity and long-term health effects that continue to claim lives to this day. Worst of all, authorities kept thrusting ordinary men into an extraordinary nightmare. Firefighters that rushed towards the heart of the disaster, unaware that they were facing a disaster unlike any they had ever encountered before.
You taste metal.
There's a scene that stands out to me where a firefighter picks up a chunk of burning graphite from the exploded reactor core. I know, deep down, that firefighters are trained to handle hot material, so this wouldn't have actually happened in reality, but I still felt a panic creep in because I knew about the invisible danger that Brick held. And, of course, not much later, the firefighter is seen with his hand completely destroyed from the small interaction. When those that hold power delve into forbidden knowledge, a Faustian bargain unfolds. In the way that the seductive power of hidden truths for control and dominion often leads to unforeseen consequences, the knowledge meant to elevate and protect nations become tools of oppression, inadvertently corrupting the wielder. As this line between enlightenment and darkness blurs, the consequences ripple through society. The once trusting people gradually become victims of their leaders' hubris. When the pursuit of knowledge is unchecked by ethical considerations, it always ends in doom for those it was meant to serve. It's a setting I've only seen once before.
Ruin has come to our family.
With a world steeped in gothic horror and Lovecraftian themes, Darkest Dungeon is a true psychological nightmare. Before the events of the game, the ancestor to a once proud estate recounts how he unearthed a gateway to unimaginable evil deep beneath the mansion's foundations, revealing the origins of the world that is now more tentacle than tree. But the road to hell is always paved with good intentions, and in Darkest Dungeon, that road begins with an honorable goal, restoring a family estate to its former glory. So it shouldn't be surprising that just like every setting before this one, when ancient scrolls or nonsensical scribbles are involved, reading the words aloud always gives rise to a swarm of grotesque and unholy creatures.
In time, you will know the tragic extent of my failings.
The Ancestor is not only a perfect narrator for the remarkably grim and sadistic story unfolding, but simultaneously the driving force of the more insidious unraveling of the mind as it grapples with the changed world. A city that was once a bastion of important literature now has inhabitants offering books, buildings, and even their own bodies to the flames. Farmlands that fester with towering mountains of flesh and flesh abominations devouring each other. It reveals that the uncovering of dangerous knowledge isn't just an external corrupting force, but something that festers within. Because the heroes you command aren't just battling grotesque creatures, they're fighting against the very environment, the oppressive atmosphere that seeks to consume their rationality with every step. Every critical hit is a hammer blow to their sanity. Every abhorrent encounter chips away at their resolve. The inevitable meltdown looms like a constant threat in a world where the mind itself is the most vulnerable battleground. When I think of the pursuit of knowledge and the nature of reality, I think of the 2018 movie Annihilation. Inside this alien soap bubble lies a pocket reality that leaks a cosmic essence into Earth's existence, warping and rewriting the familiar into something more. Resembling countless tales where turning a page of a book summons a different form of reality, it's difficult to unlearn knowledge that comes from these books. So once the mind witnesses cosmic truths, there's no turning back. Just like the scientists that enter the Shimmering Forest slowly begin to realize that there is no returning from this new form of self. But one thing even the most brilliant scientists can't figure out is the origin of the bubble. Just as the source of eldritch beings and ancient secrets remains entirely unclear in most narratives. In many cultures, forbidden knowledge is closely linked to the divine. Gods and deities often withhold certain truths from humanity, deeming them too powerful or potentially destructive. Prometheus stealing fire from the gods, Pandora unleashing chaos upon the world by opening her box. These all illustrate the consequences of defying divine boundaries. But it can also be found within the remnants of the past. Ancient civilizations may have possessed advanced knowledge that was ultimately lost or deliberately concealed. Like Greek fire, for example, a weapon so destructive it seemed to mock the very laws of nature. The Byzantine Empire conjured a burning liquid that clung to into flesh and wood, even igniting on the surface of water. In the long run, the loss of the exact formula might have saved countless lives, and in the series Avatar: The Last Airbender, legends speak of lost archives like Wan Shi Tong's hidden library. When Team Avatar visits to find information about the Fire Nation's weaknesses, the ancient spirit sinks the library into the sand when Sokka tries to steal a war balloon design. Some truths are buried deep because the world is not ready for their unearthing, and the Guardians of Wisdom understand this truth deeply. But hidden wisdom can also arise from a relentless pursuit of scientific and technological advancement. Scientists pushing the boundaries of ethics, like Victor Frankenstein, may stumble upon terrifying truths about life and death. It's alive! In the same way, the protagonists of Fullmetal Alchemist, Edward and Alphonse Elric, embark on a desperate quest to restore their bodies after a transmutation gone wrong. But in their pursuit of this quest, they find an artifact rumored to hold the power they seek, the Philosopher's Stone. But it leads them to a dark truth, because the stone is created through the sacrifice of countless human lives, a process that has driven many who sought its power insane. In different types of media, you can see arcane knowledge take on many forms, each with its own seductive call and terrifying potential. Sometimes it's a deliberate choice to delve into the forbidden, like the ancestor in Darkest Dungeon reading a dangerous tome that promises some fabulous and unnameable power, only to unleash a festering abomination upon the world. Other times, it's an accidental awakening, a stumble into the abyss of the unknown. Like in Still Wakes the Deep, the depths of the ocean hold secrets best left undisturbed, where horrors beyond the imagination of even the most brilliant scientists would unfold. Even in Gravity Falls, the reason the show's villain is called into existence is because a scientist needed a little help with his research. I guess it's hardly shocking that most of the time it's those with the greatest minds who delve deepest into the mysteries of the universe.
What is that melody?
And then there are those who seek knowledge for noble ends, with the hopes to heal and protect, only to find themselves corrupted by that very same power. Beyond its incredible visuals and compelling characters, the series Arcane grapples with the complex theme of forbidden knowledge in unexpected ways. Victor's journey and his tragic struggle for progress, for example, embodies this dilemma. He and another brilliant scientist invented something called Hextech, a fusion of science and magic where crystals basically act as batteries to store magical energy. The scientists initially see Hextech as a force for good, hoping to use its power to bridge the deep divide between Piltover's privileged elite and the struggling undercity of Zaun. And spoilers for Season 2, make sure to watch the show, because it takes a pretty shocking turn. I was extremely lucky to be invited by Riot Games to a premiere showing of the first 3 episodes 2 weeks before the official release. And when the screening ended, I couldn't help but feel like I had just witnessed a cosmic horror, and I had nobody to talk to about it until now. The once promising Hextech technology slowly starts showing signs of a strange transformation. Somewhere along the line, the technology became corrupted by an unseen force, turning it from a source of hope to an unpredictable catalyst for destruction. Victor, who once dreamed of a better future for Zaun, has become a tragic victim of this corruption. His obsession with using Hextech to save lives has completely consumed him, both literally and figuratively.
Knowledge is a paradox. The more one understands, the more one realizes the vastness of his ignorance.
At the end of the show, we see Victor transcend his mortal form to ascend to a state of eldritch power. One's humanity, it seems, is a small price to pay for unlocking the universe's secrets. But can you condemn the scientist for pursuing his convictions to salvage the doomed? Can you fault the Elric brothers for seizing every desperate chance to reclaim their bodies? Can you blame yourself for embracing the brutal necessities of survival in a fallen world? Just as the quest for knowledge can unleash destruction when divorced from ethical considerations, so too can the control of knowledge through censorship create similar scenarios in the real world. Because where should we, as a species, draw the line? Is human cloning the point of no return when it comes to violating the natural order? Would we be playing God when we talk about modifying genes in ways that are passed down to human generations? And perhaps we've already reached a point where intelligence is too intelligent when it comes to artificial intelligence. This control of information has long extended beyond the realm of scientific progress. Governments and institutions suppressing information that can range from state secrets and classified documents to potentially concealing evidence of wrongdoings or controversial policies. That is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's more frightening than any slumbering behemoth. With great power comes great responsibility is a quote that is often attributed to Spider-Man, and though not explicitly about knowledge, it applies to the idea that those who possess powerful or potentially dangerous knowledge have a responsibility to use it wisely and ethically. But even decades after the disaster, Chernobyl still holds a deadly truth that some try to keep hidden forever. Deep within the ravaged heart of the nuclear power plant lies a putrid tumor known as the elephant's foot. A large solidified mass of corium that is a lava-like mixture of nuclear fuel and reactor components that melted down during the explosion. The elephant's foot isn't just a relic, it's a potent source of lethal radiation. When it was first discovered, the radiation levels were so intense that simply standing near it for 5 minutes would deliver a fatal dose. Even today, it remains one of the most radioactive objects on Earth. Now entombed in concrete and its radioactivity slowly dropping, the monstrosity is a monument to that night that changed everything. We unleashed forces we couldn't control, and our only response was to bury the evidence, hoping time and oblivion would erase them. But how many other hidden scars now festering beneath the surface await rediscovery? The pursuit of knowledge is a defining characteristic of humanity. It drives us to explore, to innovate, and to push the boundaries of what's possible. But the path to understanding can be dangerous. There are lines, sometimes thin, sometimes strong, that separate discovery from destruction and understanding from hubris. The ocean of truth stretches out vast and unknowable before us, and within its depths, ancient horrors stir. Seeking to illuminate the darkness of ignorance is what might end up consuming us. Some things are not meant for mortal minds. Some secrets are best left buried. Thank you for joining me on this journey to get closer to the cosmic truth. If you enjoyed this exploration, you can help out the channel by liking, subscribing, and hitting the bell notification icon to be notified when the next cosmic horror dissection goes live. And I'll see you in the next video.